I mean, there must be a through line if you're getting to the year 6000, right?
I don't get to the year 6000.
Well, I'm saying they saw, for example, the Montauk horse in the year 6000, so that somehow the Earth had to be, or at least a version.
I'm not even sure that's Earth.
Okay, that's valid. For example, you think that what you've, okay, there's two things here. One is what they saw in the days of the Montauk Project. And in the days of the Montauk Project, you said there was some evidence that got to the year 3000. There was evidence of getting to the year 6000.
I was using that as an example.
But did they get, in other words, you said there was sort of a blacked out time up until the year 2000, and that after 2012, it was more or less, you said, sketchy.
Yep.
But since then, you've been doing some traveling, and are you seeing a sort of information going up until 2020 something?
It looks like right now, it looks like 2023.
2023. And what are you seeing?
This year, this is going to be the year 2012, 2013 of sun problems, and we're already having sun stuff.
Okay, and can you elaborate on what you've seen for this year and next?
Well, I'm not going to make any predictions.
Sure.
As you go ahead in time opens up to a hemisphere of possibilities. But what we're having right now is we're having training solar flares, one right after another. There are huge magnetic storms on the sun, which some people at NASA think could go into a circular global type corona mass ejection. And if that happens, we get an EMP that wipes out most of our modern technology on this planet.
Okay, and have you tried to sort of go to that time and see whether indeed that happens, or are you sort of not sure?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
And then I project through using certain recordings that witness to the, the horizon of what you're talking of, and that's when I find it's coming around 2023. And back in 2000, it looked like it was 2012. But as we progress towards 2012, that point jumped ahead, and then they jump ahead again.
Well, when you said that point jumps ahead to what? From 2012 to where?
First it went to about 2018, then it went to 2020, and now it's 2023.
Okay. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ashiana Dean.
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, she has some information from off-worlders that says that we're going to actually jump to the year something like 50, and then
that's very possible.
And then we're going to move
there
back.
Is involved in this a 20-year dead zone in time.
Okay.
So if it jumps ahead to the 2030s, it could jump right directly to the 2050s.
Okay. Yeah, it could be interesting. All right.
That could be very interesting.
Do you, in doing what you're doing even now, and I'm sure it was different back then, but you can sort of talk about that too if you'd like. What were the physical ramifications of time travel?
Well, from the Montauk Project, the time projection wasn't stable enough. We were told if we ever met ourselves in the future from that point, don't get anywhere near us.
Okay, but
no, when
now?
I went and looked for myself in the mid-'90s in the forest fires, I wasn't supposed to do that. But I was told in the 70s and 80s, if I ever came across myself in the future, don't approach myself.
Okay, but in terms of the physical ramifications of the time travel you're doing now, do you notice any difference?
I don't know for sure.
Okay, well, you said you're trying to...
What's going ahead, there are so many influences. I don't know if anything I've done has had any effect. It could have.
Okay, well, but you said you were trying to affect DNA, so there's obviously, in other words, you can...
Well, that's a different issue.
Well, it can manifest physically, though, right?
Say again?
If you affect the DNA, it also manifests physically.
It can.
So, you know how they say that we have junk DNA, which is actually valid DNA, and that if you can activate those strands, we would eventually get to what we're supposed to be, which is 12-strand and beyond DNA activated. So you must be attempting to do that.
No, what I'm attempting to do is to clear out the distortion from the continual replication of the DNA in the body.
Okay. In that distortion...
Trying to return the DNA to about the age of 25 in males, and probably more like 19 in females.
Okay, well, one of the things that we're told is that when the Anunnaki came to Earth and messed with humans' DNA, and this was...
They weren't the only ones.
Oh, absolutely, I understand that. But when they did it, what they did is that's when they limited the human lifespan.
Well, what they did is they crashed the 24th pair into the 23rd.
I see.
That's why we don't have 48 chromosomes. We have 46.
Mm-hmm.
And the wing makers originally told me that, and then it was announced medically, and the medical people said it was the first and the second. So which end do you call the 23rd, 24th, or which end do you call the first and second? You know, it's the exact same thing.
Just out of curiosity, have you been following this John Ford UFO case that Peter Moon's involved with?
Oh, yeah, I know John Ford very well.
Okay. Do you know
He calls me every Sunday from the loony bin.
Okay. Do you think that he is loony?
He's no more loony than you and I are.
Okay. Good. Glad to hear it. What about this very interesting individual over in, I guess it's Romania, that's involved with the Romanian discovery somewhere near the, I guess what they call the Romanian Sphinx?
Right. Yeah.
Peter
Moon's working with that. If you want to talk of that, you're best interviewing him.
I understand, but I just wondered whether or not you had any, because if you're doing time traveling, you can actually go all sorts of places, right?
I haven't attempted to even go there.
Okay. All right, what about CERN? Have you tried to see what they're doing over there?
Oh, I know exactly what they're doing.
Do you want to tell us?
They're basically trying to create a miniature black hole, which they're going about using a sledgehammer to kill flies. So there are much more subtle, easier ways to do it.
Okay, so you actually believe that they're trying to do that?
And it's very dangerous.
Right, but what's the purpose of doing something like that?
They're trying to prove the existence of the Big Bang.
I know. That's the cover story, though.
And they're trying to generate a black hole and control it.
Isn't it much more likely that they're trying to actually create a sort of a force field around Earth and move us into another dimension?
There's enough power there to do that.
You don't think so?
No. It takes much more power than they got in CERN.
Okay. Did your wingmaker contacts tell you of any kind of invasion happening on the planet Earth?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And did they say it was in the future, or did they say when it was going to happen?
They say it's in the future.
Okay. But how far in the future? Is it soon?
I shouldn't go into that.
I see. Okay. Well, how about this idea? Have you heard of the idea that Horus is returning to Earth?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Do you believe that?
I don't know.
You think it's a possibility?
I guess it's a possibility.
Okay. I was just curious. Now we only have about a half hour left to our show, and we're probably going to have a break here pretty quick. But when we come back, what I'd like to do is open it up for callers to ask you questions. I'm sure a lot of people have all sorts of questions they'd like to ask. But I'd also like you to tell us anything that you would like to sort of talk about that I haven't asked you about, but you'd like to tell us about.
Yeah.
Okay. So
well, we have gone into what my present day research is with music affecting genetics and,
right.
Mental travel through the equipment.
Uh-huh. But in terms of what you're doing now, and first of all, I mean, do you have kids? Did you get married? I'm sorry, I don't know, but are they affected by what you do, your experiments or at all?
No, I don't have.
Okay.
I've been a bachelor my whole life.
And do you have any friends that have that are are taking part in your experiments?
Some.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So that must be pretty interesting.
Well, nothing else, what you get out of the work I'm doing now is we have ways of opening the person's mind up. And what it turns out, it's the best thing you could do if you're a performer. When you're being trained as a performer, you're told to reach out and touch the mind of the audience.
Uh-huh.
And I know exactly how to open a guy up for that.
Okay.
I've had quite a bit of work doing that.
Interesting. All right. Very good. All right. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Preston Nichols. Thank you. Hi, it's Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot, Whistleblower Radio, and we're talking to Preston Nichols, and what I'm going to do is open it up for callers, and that means that if there's anyone who wants to call in, I believe you call, let's see, if you want to call Skype, it looks like they have a Freedom Screen, which is the Skype name that you can call, or you can dial 347-688-2902. And in the meantime, Preston, are you still there?
Yep.
Okay, very good. In terms of the future, are you optimistic